Hi everyone, my name is Maria Jose and I am the Chief Outreach Manager at the READ Project, a peer mentorship and career advice community for social scientists. It is my pleasure to introduce Samanee Mahbub, Product Marketing Manager at Transfix, and the star of our second episode. Samanee will be giving us some pointers on how to network and find employment during the COVID-19 crisis.
Hi everyone, my name is Samanee Mahbub. I'm a graduate from Brown University with a history major, and since graduating, I've worked in marketing at Rothy's, which is a direct-to-consumer company, Crunchbase, which is a tech company, and now currently at Transfix, which is also another tech company out in New York. The first is I would not view your major as preventing you from working in tech. I'm sure it's not very obvious like how history necessarily relates to marketing, but I think if you one just show like an interest for the industry you're interested in. So for me, when I was working at trying to go work at Rothy's, I was really interested in their shoe brand, and it's made out of recycled water bottle plastic. So I just try to learn as much as I could about that company, much like you do with like an essay you're writing about. You just try to research as much as you can. The second thing is networking is incredibly important, particularly in the tech industry. Just trying to get a conversation with the person who's hiring. So at Rothy's, I was able to get an introduction to their chief operating officer. When I was trying to go work at Crunchbase, I cold emailed the entire marketing team, and actually my future manager actually ended up responding to me. And then at my current role at Transfix, a product manager who worked at Crunchbase happened to know my now current manager. They went to school together. So networking is incredibly important in the tech industry. Just trying to get those warm introductions or even just cold emailing and getting your foot through the door is really helpful in terms of getting the interview. And the last part is just like knowing what the role is. So for me, I wanted to be a product marketing manager. So just researching what that role is, what are the responsibilities, and just seeing like how you can develop that skill set or just learn about it. For me, I just ended up reading a lot about the tech industry, about the specific role, and learned like I have a lot of the same transferable skill sets. A lot of it is just thinking of marketing strategy. So the more you read about marketing, the more you get aware of it, learning how to support a sales team. So that's just like building content and building resources, which isn't an impossible skill set to develop by yourself. And it is not a very technical skill set either. It tends to be more qualitative, which led sort of leaned into my strengths as a history major. I actually think people are more willing to respond right now. One, people are just at home, they have more time. Two, I think people are very aware of just like what a world situation is. People are all looking out for jobs. So I think people are actually a little bit more generous right now with their time. And third is just like crafting when it comes to the actual cold email or the cold LinkedIn connect. My first advice is actually LinkedIn connect or email alums of your university. So you basically want to establish like a connection. So for me, Brown University was a connection, but you don't always need it if you don't have that. That's not the biggest deal. You want to establish credibility. So for me, I had done marketing before at a somewhat recognizable company. So that was my credibility. And then you have an ask. So my ask was, can I get 30 minutes of your time just to talk about this job that I see that's open? So the strategy is just like you need to just send that email as to as many people as possible. I usually recommend like 3 to 5 people at every company you're applying to, and chances are 1 or 2 of those people are going to reply to you. And just be perseverant in terms of getting in front of people, and then just making a case of like why they should talk to you. I guess the piece of advice I would always give myself at graduation is we tend to underestimate how much knowledge we have and how much value we can add. We're so grateful for having the job. But a piece of advice a manager of mine once gave me from an internship was nobody knows what they're doing. So you might as well just go out there and do something and try it out and learn from it. And that's proven more and more true over as I've kind of gone from job to job. For example, the job I currently have required 4 years of experience on the job description. I had less than 8 months and I still got the job. So proving to myself that I could do that, that you have value, I think is great advice. Like I'm glad I didn't let like that initial like 4 years required experience stop me from applying. I would say it's more the skills I learned as a history major, being able to consume information incredibly quickly, being able to understand complex concepts, being able to communicate incredibly clearly. Those are all three very, very big components of my job. And that's a skill set I learned from being a history major that I would not have learned if I pursued a more technical degree, for example. And I would say within marketing, particularly product marketing, it's a much more soft skills orientated job. Like a lot of my job is working with 5 or 6 different teams, trying to influence them, trying to get them to do different things. And I think as a history major, you're constantly just trying to write essays and communicate, and you're trying to get your point across and convince different parties that your argument is right. So honestly, it's a pretty direct translation into my job. So I would definitely say overall, like a social studies background has given me like a foundational skill set that's proven really, really useful in my marketing career. I think the first trick is actually just finding the companies that are still hiring and doing well. Crunchbase is another good example. Look for companies that recently raised funding. That means they have money and they want to hire because they're growing. I think the second aspect of that is then seeing what open roles they have. I think it's much harder right now to like make your own role. While I usually would recommend making your own role, right now I would say look for open jobs. I would say don't get deterred by a job description. If you can meet 60% of the requirements on a job description, you're absolutely qualified to go apply. A lot of things are very generic, so it's just like good communication skills. So put like your writing experience if you've written like essays or your thesis or anything like that. Working with people, specific marketing knowledge. Like if you don't have exact job experience, look at your volunteer experience, look at like college, look at is there a class you could take to prove that you actually know the skill set. So you constantly want to prove that you're credible and that you know what you're talking about and that you have the skill set required of the job. So finding the jobs at the companies that are hiring is next step. And then it's actually getting in front of those people. So cold emailing, finding warm introductions. Are there alums? I've gotten a pretty good response rate. Usually like 50% of people I've reached out to have responded to that LinkedIn request. So that's another option. And then just making sure like your resume is tight. So there's a lot of really good resources out on the internet. One I recommend is Laszlo Block. He was a former senior vice president at Google and heading their people team. So he wrote a LinkedIn article back in the day. He talks about how to write really impactful bullet points on your resume and how to format a resume. So once you have your resume in place, hopefully you've gotten a good conversation with somebody during this time. Then hopefully you get to the interview process. And then it's just like knowing who you are, what your experience is, why you want to work at a company. If you're applying for a specific role, they might have a case study. So hopefully you've done your research on the role and you're able to do that case study. And then just being able to show them why you're a great fit for the company. So reading up on the company, understanding the culture and values, and speaking to why that resonates with you. It's just a repetitive process. Like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. While I got this role at Transfix, a couple of companies I was interviewing at suddenly had hiring freezes, and that's just the reality of the situation we're in right now. But it doesn't mean that all companies have stopped hiring. So it's just finding those companies. I think it's just have faith. Honestly, it's a crazy time in this world right now, and I think it's okay to know that it might take longer to find a job, but 2 months in the grand scheme of things is not the end of the world. Especially if you have the resources to take care of yourself. Obviously, I know not everyone's in that position. And then with this extra time, it's just like build a really good resume. Make sure it's tailored to every role you're applying to. I, for example, had like a base resume, but every company I apply to, I try to use the exact words in their job description in my resume to make it stand out. So so just like make sure you're spending that time to do that. With your cold outreach, try not to be generic, try to find as many people. And I think it's just like it's very systematic. It can feel tiring, but you only need one door to open. It's just having the perseverance to know that it will be okay. It may take a little longer, but it's definitely possible. People are still finding jobs, and this whole idea of like everyone is in it together. If you have friends or people who are going through the process, like build a community of support. It can be really lonely, especially right now that we don't have like physical connection with people. Like have a group of friends that you can do this together with, check in with each other. And it's okay if you need a break from job hunting as well. It's tiring. It's hard to stay motivated, and sometimes you need a day off. So that's okay as well. And then I think like one more resource I can share. So I've written different job hunting resources and guides and resume templates and things like that. That should take you to a folder of things I've written, webinars I've recorded, templates that I have used and have been pretty successful with. So I'm like that's like a free resource. You don't have to pay for that. I'm like happy to share that because things I've written that are in the public domain. Bye.